we are going to draw boxes in 2-point perspective. So we're going to start the same way we start every single perspective construction, with our horizon line and our vanishing points. So somewhere near the middle of my page, again, I can eyeball it, doesn't have to be exact. I'm going to place my ruler in the center and draw a line that goes straight across, a horizontal straight line. This represents my eye level as the viewer and as the artist. So anything that's above my horizon line, I'm going to label that as an HL, I'm going to see the bottom of it. Anything that's below my horizon line, I'll see the tops of those objects. And since this is 2-point perspective, we need 2 vanishing points. So in 1-point perspective, we put our 1 point right in the middle of our horizon line, and all of our lines converge back to that. In 2-point perspective, we're going to use the sides, the very far sides of the horizon line to draw our lines back to. So on the right-hand side of my paper, on my horizon line, I'm going to draw my first vanishing point. Again, very close to the edge of my paper where it ends. And I'm going to do the same thing on the left-hand side. So the left side of my paper on my horizon line, close to the edge of that paper there, is going to be my second vanishing point. The neat thing about the horizon line is that as artists, we can move it wherever we want to. So for our perspective constructions here, we're just going to keep it right kind of in the middle while we're learning the basics. But later, you can always move it. So you could have your horizon line way up top. That means I'm seeing more of the tops of things. If this was a desk or a bed or whatever, I'm seeing more of the top of it. Or I could do the same thing by moving my horizon line to the bottom. So if it's lower or towards the bottom of my paper, then I'm seeing the tops of things more. So as artists, we get to play around with that. But for this basic perspective construction where you're learning the tools or the techniques, we're going to keep our horizon line in the center. So I'm going to start by making boxes. I'm going to do a box at the bottom and a box at the top, and then you are going to complete more after I make these 2 with you. So we're going to start with straight verticals. In 1-point perspective, both our verticals and our horizontals stayed straight or parallel to the horizon line and parallel to the edge of the paper. In 2-point perspective, the only thing that stays straight up and down anymore, that doesn't converge back to a vanishing point, is our verticals. So somewhere near the bottom of my page, underneath my horizon line, I can put it wherever I want. I'm the artist. I'm going to do a vertical straight line that's underneath my horizon line and stops before it hits the bottom of my page. So that line that I just drew, that vertical I just drew, is parallel to the sides of my picture. It's the only thing that's going to stay parallel anymore. All of my other sides now are going to converge back to the vanishing point. It's as if we're looking at an object at the corner and we can see both sides going back in 3D space. So as if I was standing in the corner of the room and seeing the opposite corner of a room, or if I'm standing at the corner of a desk and seeing the both sides of the desk, the corner of the desk going back in virtual space. So that line that I just drew at the bottom of that vertical that I just drew, I'm going to line that point up with my vanishing point on the right, and I'm going to draw towards the right. I'm going to take it back a ways. I don't want to go the whole way. I don't want it to connect to that, but I'm drawing back towards that. I'm going to do the same thing now for the top. So the top of that vertical that I first drew, I'm going to line that up with my vanishing point on the right, and I'm going to draw back towards the right. And for right now, I'm just going to let that hang out in space while I do the other side. So again, it's as if I'm seeing these boxes at a corner. So that same point at the bottom, so that first vertical that I drew, the very bottom of that, I'm going to line that up now with my vanishing point on the left, and I'm going to draw towards the left. I'm the artist, I get to decide how far I want to draw back. I'm going to do the same thing at the top. So the top of that very first vertical that I first drew to construct this box, the top of that vertical is going to line up with my vanishing point on the left-hand side, and I'm going to draw towards the left. So I have these two spaces that are converging back towards my vanishing point, one on each side. Now I need to end each side of my box, and I do that again with straight verticals. So on my right hand side here, I get to decide where I want to place it. I'm going to do a vertical that is parallel to that very first vertical that I made, or parallel to the side of my paper plane. So connecting between those two converging lines, a vertical right there. I'm going to erase off my extra little bits. You can do the same if you overdrew. And now I'm going to do another vertical on the left side of this box. So where these two converging lines are just ending there, I'm going to have a vertical that connects the two. Again, a vertical that is parallel to that very first vertical that I made. Don't let your verticals go out or be at an angle. They should be straight up and down. So parallel to that very first vertical that we made, or parallel to the edge of my paper. So I'm going to connect those two. And so I'm going to lightly shade this so you can see this. This is one side of my box going back in 3D space. I'm going to shade the other side a little bit darker. This is the other side. So this is the right hand side of this box going back in 3D space in 2-point perspective. And this is the left hand side of that box. Now I need to finish the top. And I do that by taking my verticals to the opposite side vanishing point. I can't just do a horizontal straight across here because, first of all, it wouldn't be straight across. It just wouldn't look right in 3D space. So what I'm going to do is the top of this vertical on the right hand side of my box, top of that vertical where it met that converging line, I'm going to draw it towards the opposite side vanishing point. So if I'm on the right hand side, so the vertical is on the right hand side of my box, it converges back to the vanishing point on the left side of the paper. So that point on that vertical lines up with my vanishing point on the left, and I'm going to draw back towards the left. I'm going to do the same thing now for the vertical on the right hand side. So left hand side. So on the left hand side of my box, this vertical right here on the left hand side of this box, the top of that is going to line up with the vanishing point on the right. So it's always opposite. So left hand side vertical lines up with the vanishing point on the right. Right hand side vertical lines up and draws towards the vanishing point on the left. So again, this vertical I just made that ended this side of my box, the top of that is going to line up with my vanishing point on the right, and I'm going to draw towards the right until those two converging lines meet. Then I'm going to erase off my extra. You have to do that opposite vanishing points to finish out the top. It cannot be a straight horizontal. There's no more straight horizontals anymore in 2-point perspective. They are all converging lines now. So I'm going to do another box on the top here, on the top of my screen, or top of my paper up here, above my horizon line. So I'm going to start the same way I started this one, with straight verticals. So above my horizon line, I get to decide where it's going to go on my paper. I'm going to do a vertical that is parallel to the side of my paper here. I'm going to have it be underneath the top of my paper, and I'm going to have it stop before it gets to my horizon line. So again, verticals stay straight up and down, parallel to the sides of our paper. Don't let them go at an angle. They stay straight up and down, even these ones on the side. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top of that vertical that I first made. I'm going to line that up with my vanishing point on the left, and I'm going to draw down towards the left. So that point lines up with my vanishing point on the left-hand side of my paper, and I draw down towards the left. Do the same thing now for the bottom. So that first vertical that I made for this box, the bottom of that vertical lines up with my vanishing point on the left, and I'm going to draw down towards the left. So I have this line converging back, or this shape converging back in 3D space towards my vanishing point on the left. I'm going to do the same thing now, except this time I'm going to convert it back to my vanishing point on the right side of my paper. So the top of that very first vertical I made is going to line up with my vanishing point on the right, and then I'm going to draw down towards the right. Do the same thing now for the bottom. So that very first vertical that I made, the bottom point of that is going to line up with my vanishing point on the right. And I'm going to draw again down towards the right-hand side vanishing point. So I have these two spaces that are going back towards the vanishing point, one on the left-hand side, one on the right-hand side. So now I got to finish out the sides of this box, and I do that with verticals again. Remembering that my verticals, I can place them wherever I want since I'm the artist, but my verticals need to stay straight up and down or parallel to the same angle as the side of my paper. Straight up and down. I'm going to lightly shade this side. This is the left-hand side of my box above my horizon line, just like this is the left-hand side of the box below my horizon line. And then I'm going to do another vertical on the right-hand side of this box that connects those two converging lines. Again, that vertical needs to stay straight up and down. It doesn't go out like this or in like that. It's straight up and down, parallel to the side of my paper. I'm going to draw that to connect the two. And then I'm going to shade this one in a little bit darker than the first one, or than the left-hand side, so that you can see the difference between the left-hand side of the box and the side that vanishes off towards the right of this box in 2-point perspective. And then I'm going to erase off my extra parts on this side here, like a little extra converging lines. Don't need those. My last step for this box is to create the bottom. And I do that by taking, again, verticals to the opposite side vanishing point. So if my vertical here is closest to the left-hand side of my paper, then I'm going to take the bottom in this case over towards the opposite side vanishing point. So left vertical goes to the right-hand side vanishing point. So the bottom lines up with my vanishing point on the right. So left vertical, bottom lines up with my vanishing point on the right-hand side. And I'm going to draw back towards the right-hand side vanishing point. Now this vertical is on the right. It's the rightmost vertical. So the bottom of this vertical is going to line up with the opposite side vanishing point, which is my vanishing point on the left-hand side. So right side vertical, bottom lines up with my vanishing point on the left-hand side. And then I draw towards the left side until those two lines converge and look like they're going back in 3D space. So it should appear that these boxes that I'm making, I'm seeing them at a corner. So there's a corner of this box and I get to see both sides going back in 3D space. I would like for you to continue to practice by making 2 more boxes above the horizon line and 2 more boxes below the horizon line. So you have a total of 6 boxes for this 2-point perspective exercise.